Feeling thirsty for knowledge? Hackers on the Rocks is the podcast that mixes refreshing conversation with potent cybersecurity insights. Serving up these insights with a twist, we pair a different software vulnerability with a refreshing cocktail recipe each episode. All right, hello world and greetings all around. Today we have a prolific researcher who goes by the handle Acorn, aka Aaron. As is our custom, the opening segment is called Get Handle Information. Aaron, let's start off by telling everyone what we're drinking today.
Sure. Also, prolific feels generous, but thank you. We're going to drink a last word.
Tell us the last word.
Yep.
What is a last word?
Excuse me while I get the water out of my mixing ice.
Yeah,
it is equal parts gin, green chartreuse, maraschino liqueur, and lime juice.
right.
Traditionally like 3/4 or maybe an ounce of each, depending on the strength of the pour. And garnish as you wish, typically a maraschino cherry. I'm not worrying about that today, but then mix with ice, typically shaken. I don't usually shake my drinks because I don't like the sound. So.
And how did we come upon the last word? This is not one that I see on most menus wherever I go.
Oh, okay. Well, number one, it's delicious. I love chartreuse. It's really disappointing that it's hard to find now. I haven't had one in a while because it's hard to find, and I don't want to use up the bottle. We've got just a bit of left. But it's just one of those classic gin drinks, I guess. This is one of those pandemic hobby type things. And thankfully the amount of drinking happening now is much, much lower, but it's probably not very healthy. I mean, still pandemic, etc., but like not in a lockdown phase. Anyway, yeah, it's just one of those classic gin drinks, and at the time, chartreuse was easier to get a hold of, so it was one that was enjoyed.
Fair enough. All right. Well, I have my equal parts maraschino liqueur, lime juice, gin, and my knockoff chartreuse. So
hopefully that works. We'll see.
Yeah.
So,
cheers to you. Yeah.
Well, I'm not drinking yet. I got to mix it. Here's my ice. Here's my mix, and now it's time to actually do it properly.
Fair enough.
You gotta put water in it. If you don't put water in it, it's not quite right.
I don't have any more room in my glass for anything else.
Well, you can sit there and just lament the fact that you don't have water and ice to do this properly, to slightly chill it and water it.
I've got ice. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We're not.
Yeah, I'm not a bartender.
Anyway. We're not uncivilized here. We have ice.
Anyway.
Yeah. Well, cheers. Thanks for coming on board.
Cheers.
Yeah.
What color is yours and why?
So mine is purple. And
this
the
is
reason...
Go ahead.
Yeah. No, the reason why is the last episode was also a gin episode.
Okay.
Yale Grauer had some special recipe where the drink actually changed colors when you mixed certain things together. Yeah.
Oh, you've got like the Empress gin or whatever it is there?
Yeah, that's the one. So
yeah. That's a very pretty gin. Excuse me, I'll grab it.
So it makes all the things purple.
Yes.
But this is, again, I am not a gin person, but this is now my second gin drink in a row, and I'm down with it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good gin, especially in a mixed drink. It brings just a little bit of something, but it's also very good and clean. This is what a last word will typically look like. The chartreuse is, it's a chartreuse color, and then lime juice.
Yeah, fat. So, Aaron, while we're drinking, maybe you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got in the research community.
Oh, God. How I got into this is a little bit weird. I started working at Grimm back in 2017. It was my first cybersecurity job. And that was really my introduction. It was a little bit weird how I got it. It was kind of other people recommended me to them. So they interviewed me to see what's up. And then part of that, actually, they liked doing the micro-corruption CTF, if you've heard of it.
Oh, yeah.
Fantastic. It's one I recommend to everybody who's interested in reverse engineering, especially embedded systems. It's just such a beautiful, like enclosed little mix of things that's not completely toy problems, but it's also not completely impenetrable because it requires you to understand a bunch of other tools. Anyway, so
That's all right. So you're at
yeah,
Grimm. They're known
at Grimm.
for auto hacking. Yeah, yeah.
Yes, they became well known for automotive hacking. They did a lot of other types of research and reverse engineering, vulnerability research. But embedded systems was kind of my specialty, both as a developer, which I was before, and now, in the, in a as a cybersecurity researcher, right? So it was a little bit weird how I got into it. Just, there's one of those things where it's like a good percentage of hackers, there's no standard way to get into the job. It's mostly I was familiar with embedded systems. People recommended me because they'd worked with me in the past. And here I am.
Yeah. Hey, the social network matters. I appreciate it. Why don't we take a quick break to hear from our sponsors, and we'll come back and we'll talk auto hacking.
Sure.
This episode is brought to us by Squadra Ventures, a venture capital firm that invests in early-stage cyber and national security technology companies. By applying a growth stage mindset at the seed stage and a commitment to building alongside entrepreneurs, Squadra's team of former founders and operators provide transformational support to startup leaders in the complex dual-use technology ecosystem. For entrepreneurs and founders in our audience, connect with them at squadra.vc. All right, welcome back, Aaron. This segment is called The Distillery, where you're going to help inspire the audience to perhaps follow in your footsteps. Cool. I think removing the intimidation factors there, we're going to distill down to the essence, essentially what it is you do. So what are we talking about today?
What is it I do? In terms of the job, just doing research, it's okay. Well, every time I do a talk, I usually start it off with, there's usually two things I get in there. One thing is about imposter syndrome. I don't know if I've got time to go into that spiel, but second thing, maybe I will. Second thing is basically what it means to be a researcher, be a hacker. And in my opinion, there's basically there's two things that make a hacker. One is that you're curious. Second thing is that you are extremely stubborn. That's it. You notice there's nothing in there about the type of technology that you're applying these skills to or anything, because I don't think it really matters. If you're trying to understand how something works, if you're trying to make something work in a way that's not traditional, I think it applies. So that's kind of the number one. So if you're curious and you're stubborn enough to figure things out, you are a hacker already. Just because you don't know particular technical things doesn't mean that you're not already there.
Yeah, I like that. And that echoes. I think when we first met, you were giving a talk at Chicago's ThoughtCon. And I think the reason in my intro I said you were prolific was I kind of followed you around for a little bit. And there were a lot of people also following you, and they were asking you amazing questions. And you were on their radars. And I guess maybe your talk was around just playing around with automobile systems, right?
Sure.
And
how to
maybe those can be intimidating, right? Because they're expensive, and it feels like if you mess one up, it's hard to replace or hard to repair back in. So I guess how does one get started? Just with understanding what maybe an attack surface looks like, or where to start digging.
So for looking at cars, I like especially because I feel that they are good examples that most people are familiar with, having owned or driven or rented or just ridden in them. Wheeled road vehicles are a thing that very many people have seen.
I've heard of them before, yeah.
Yes, I've heard of this concept. And it's nice because they're a perfect example of embedded embedded control systems.
Okay.
Especially, even if you go back to like mid-90s cars, there's some level of computerization going on there, of course, because it was more efficient than a carburetor. Basically the reason. And then as especially the last 10, 15 years, the number of electronic systems in them has just absolutely exploded because the technology was there. And so I like to use them as an example when talking about embedded hacking, embedded cybersecurity, because it's some thing that people are familiar with. And to my mind, a vehicle is basically just a rolling industrial control plant. Obviously, it doesn't have the same scale of impact, but it has the level of complexity and the types of devices communicating over industrial control networks. Networks that are intended to be reliable, but not necessarily secure. But also are not always the same thing as what you would see in a standard network, right? For a vehicle, you're going to get like CANbus. Honestly, you could get a bunch of weird things. You get RS-45. If you go older than 2008, you'll get a bunch of other weird, like vehicle-specific type things, like things that I can't remember the acronyms of all of a sudden.
Well, let's start on the newer stuff. So what is CANbus?
So CANbus, best way I would describe it is it's two wires, shared bus network. Everybody connects the same two wires. It's terminated with resistors at each end of the bus to like prevent echoes or some electrical engineering concern that isn't your problem. But then functionally, if you're familiar with the old school 10100 Ethernet, the shared bus one, where you were on a network with a bunch of people and you could just make your MAC address, you could make your network card receive or send any MAC address because it was just information on a wire. That's what CANbus is. It's a shared bus. Everything's talking on it.
Got it. Okay, so if I'm now translating to network days, right, 10100s, you're right. So everyone's speaking at the same time. So there's interference. There's the ability to spoof, and there's the ability to collect and see what other people are saying. So that sounds scary, right? Because again, to some degree, there's lives at stake on a vehicle.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe we can talk a little about how does one tap into that bus? How does one start the research process?
Right. So the OBD-II port's basically going to be the place that you would usually start. In a very modern vehicle that has like a CAN gateway device, this might not be as easy. But if you got something that's like 2020 or a little bit older, you should be in luck. You can just plug into that and usually see all the messages. Again, this varies a little bit by vehicle. There's two pins that are designated by the EPA as the diagnostic bus pins, which I can't remember the official name for it, but that's usually the high-speed bus, the one that talks to the engine, the different emissions control devices. And that's there's also usually in vehicles that are older that do not have a CAN gateway, you'll typically get another couple buses, one or two, and up there. The vehicle may have more, but that might just be what's exposed on the OBD-II port.
Got it. All right. And so an OBD-II port that's a physical, like it's a plastic
that's
connection.
Like that trapezoidal thing. It's got 16 pins.
Sure. Sounds right.
It's been a while since I actually looked at the pinout.
Fair enough. And so you connect to basically a specialized computer that can read those protocols, kind of like Wireshark can read a TCP traffic. Is that kind of the same?
You usually would then use a device which allows you to read the traffic. If you're on a Linux system especially, you can have a CANbus device that looks just like any other network type device that you can configure and set through the IP route command. And Wireshark can gather traffic from it. There are also other ways to deal with this. Like there's a Python package called Python-CAN which you can use to interface with it. And there's a few other tools that you can use to actually use that to communicate with the bus. Scapy, if you're familiar with Scapy, I can also talk to automotive networks through the CANbus if you've got the appropriate drivers and stuff set up.
Okay, and so if I'm hearing you correctly, then the actual cost, the barrier to entry, seems low. It seems like nothing is super specialized, and this is just commodity equipment.
Basically, you will have to get a device to actually do the physical connection. If you've got a device that does like the code scanning, that won't get you the ability to actually talk to the device because it's all its own enclosed specialized thing. You'll generally have to get a USB to CAN adapter. And the USB CAN adapter, so if you go like basically whatever tool you're going to use to read the traffic, like if it's going to be Wireshark and you want to just look at it in Linux, or if it's Scapy, or if you're doing a Python CAN based thing, like there's a tool called Carrying Caribou. There's a few other ones that I can't remember the name of offhand. There's one called CanCat. I've written some code in CanCat. Problem with CanCat is just the hardware support because it's limited at the moment to basically like an Arduino Due type device. And the chip shortage made those difficult to find.
Yeah, fair. All right,
basically look at those and you'll find out what types of hardware you can get. Some of them are really cheap. There's open source hardware to do it. Some of them are more expensive. But there are a large number of them. You just have to do some little research. So that's the barrier to entry. Then you need something that talks CANbus, which if you have a vehicle, you've got it. You can also go and get a instrument cluster from a junkyard. Those are usually fairly cheap. And it can also just be a good exercise in learning how to connect things up electrically.
Yeah. So, all right, let's start with the first part. So,
okay.
I own a vehicle, right? And again, I can purchase some of these physical, devices and some I can use Scapy to write packets and Wireshark to read and all these other things. Is it safe to operate on my own vehicle, or is that a horrible idea?
Great question. So I used to say that the hello world of car hacking was essentially recording messages when you were unlocking the doors, replaying the messages back, and watching the doors unlock. So if you have a vehicle without a CAN gateway, you should be able to find this. It's not guaranteed. Different vehicles, there's a little bit different. There's a few differences, right? Because if you hit the button to unlock the vehicle, it's possible that that's a message sent over the CANbus and you can capture it. Sometimes they'll have little sequence numbers in them, which means then replaying it back, it might only work sometimes. Sometimes they don't have those and you can just replay it whenever. This is kind of a little bit of that network protocol reverse engineering. If you want to make it reliable, you have to do a little bit of reverse engineering to figure out how it works. But in most cases on vehicles in the 2010 to 2020s ish, you can find a bus that's exposed on the OBD-II port and you can record and replay. And I will generally tell people that if you're replaying messages that you have received from the vehicle, you don't have to worry about breaking your car. Absolute worst case you might do is make it confused and you have to remove the battery terminal and put it back, wait for 15 seconds or whatever, put it back in. That's worst case. Okay.
So maybe we can shift a little bit. So you've now said this a few times, right? The system is designed it's to be reliable but not secure, and the OBD-II port is accessible to any driver, right? It's physically right there by the steering wheel. And so why is the design consideration allowing anybody to just tap into the bus and read and write?
Well, because it has to be there for emissions testing and also for the dealer to do maintenance, basically. So there has to be a way for those two entities to talk to the vehicle. And that's basically the reason. Also, it's not that much of a concern because if you have physical access to the interior of the vehicle, you can get physical access to the ignition. And while modern vehicles are protected against simple jump starting, or simple, what's the word?
Hot wiring.
Remember, hot wiring. Thank you.
Yeah.
Can't believe I couldn't remember that. Anyway, again, simple hot wiring. It can still be done. You know.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so my kids are going to be very disappointed when they can't just connect the wires and make the car start.
Well,
it's like a dream of theirs.
Oh, is it? Well, go back before they had security chips and keys, and you can do that. Or any sort of heavy vehicle type equipment doesn't use chips and keys. So if you're talking like semis, construction equipment, those you can absolutely just hotwire.
It's
a little bit trickier. That's a little trickier, though.
If you're going to steal a car, steal a semi.
Yeah. It's a little bit trickier because you've actually got to run. You've got to jumper the system that runs the compressed air system for a little bit to get that running first, and then you can start it because the compressed air is used to actually get the diesel engine going.
That's still funny though.
It's very educational.
I love it. No, I dig it. So, all right. So, I think one thing that I think really spawned this whole episode was something that you had said again back in Chicago when we first met was bugs are bugs, right? You're gonna find things on these systems because right, anyone can connect, anyone can say things. There's a million different manufacturers, so you're gonna find buffer overflows and unauthenticated access and to me, those are interesting. Like I've got a whole podcast asking people like, how do you find these and explain this to me. And what I'm fascinated is when we first met, you're like, yeah, those are boring because you can just patch and move on. And the thing that really drives you is like, what are those things that are hard for the manufacturer to fix because the thing is already in production? Yep. Can we maybe talk a little about those kinds of things? Yeah.
So, yes. My talk in Chicago, for everyone who is not aware, was how to get RCE on a car. It's a little bit of a stretch because it's not like I didn't talk about wirelessly. I was just talking about over the CANbus. So you don't have physical connection to a device, but you're able to send messages to it that get you code execution. Well, and what I was saying is that a computer is a computer, network is a network. There will be the same types of bugs, the same flaws in any system that people write. So then that means okay, we can look at messages and we can find messages, especially things that are segmented, right? I said it was like Ethernet, which means if you have to send bigger messages, there's going to be some method to do segmentation. There absolutely is. Well, maybe sometimes those, it's implemented incorrectly and you can do a buffer overflow. Yes, you can absolutely do that sometimes. There's flaws you can find in the messages. The attack surface is limited because it's just a simple little bus. But you can find the bugs. But for me, I find it more fun to find the design flaws in systems because tools will help find simple bugs like, improving tools or development processes or review systems or whatever. Those can help find the simple bugs like preventing buffer overflows or sign inversion bugs, or your compiler can prevent different format flaws from being in there if you actually remember to use a compiler and library system that are modern enough to prevent things like %n from being in there. So there's lots of ways that the tools can help prevent simple bugs, but they won't help you fix or prevent the systemic bugs, the design flaws. And that's what I find interesting because I think that's probably more important for us to be able to find. Now, it doesn't mean that all bugs don't have to be found and patched and dealt with. They all do. But I find it more interesting to find those bugs where when you tell a room of engineers, you're like, fuck. And you see their faces fall. That's so much fun.
Can you give us an example of like a massive design flaw that's hard to fix post-production?
So this is a little challenging because, of course, the work I did was for a company, for private entities.
Understood.
And it was stuff that basically people came to us and said, what are our flaws and how can we fix them? So I'm not going to give specifics about type of system or I'm not going to give very many specifics here. I guess I will talk generally about the bugs. This is the issue we find in the ones that my talk was about, how to get code execution on a car. And the simple matter is, how do you update code on in a system from the dealer? How does the dealer tools update the code, right? And the short summary is that the method that is very common in the industry is one that lays behind a security system, a security handshake that is not very secure. And also it uses some proprietary messages that do change between automakers, but it is frequently still there. That essentially has a command in it, like an RPC type command that's essentially go run the code at this address. So, and if you do the security handshake, you're allowed to put code in places in RAM, and then you can potentially tell it to go run the code. So that means that it's like critical to like how they even roll out updates to the system, and also in vehicles that go back however long.
Got it. All right. So if I'm hearing that correctly, then conceptually, right? Not talking specifics, but
Yep.
vehicles are, look, some vehicles come with GSM radios and can update themselves, or Wi-Fi radios that connect to your home network, right? And so these vehicles now are using an internet backbone to seek out updates, right? Software packages from or what have you.
Right. I mean, any
And
it's like an IoT. So, okay, cars are rolling industrial control systems with an IoT like tacked onto them, right?
Yeah.
So the IoT part, it phones home for updates, because an important part of security is making sure you can do updates when you have bugs or flaws, or potentially just any sort of standard bug, not even a security bug, right?
Yeah, and you don't want the end users doing that. Like I would not sit in my driveway and update my car. Right? That's not a thing that I would do.
Yeah.
And so
go download this onto a USB stick and put it in your car.
Not going to happen, right? So all right. So in this situation, what I'm hearing is the ability for the car, which essentially is the client, to authenticate with the authentication server. That whole process essentially can allow a malicious person to maybe inject themselves and spoof themselves as an update server and send a malicious package forwards. Is that
not necessarily?
Okay.
The updates with the server are a different question, a different matter, because those could use a different method. They might use the same method. They might use a different method. Typically, in that case, you have the telematics device or the entertainment system, the radio, whatever.
Yep.
Those are basically, you can think of them like cell phones. The telematics system they're basically the same thing. The only big difference is like the vehicle, the type of system that's called a telematics system, doesn't have a user interface on it, but it's got the radio, and it's for telemetry, right, to the automaker and to your vehicle. And it has things like, where did you park? Or what is your fuel level? How long before oil maintenance? Can you hit your phone app? Can you please unlock this for me? So it's possible that thing has its own secured system to download things, and that might be very secure, right? That's not what I was looking at in particular. Now, it also could have bugs. Many of those things, at least often those systems do have bugs, but that depends. But the thing I was looking at and talking about in my talk is just over the CANbus. You go to the dealer says, oh, we have to apply an update to this. So this isn't even necessarily a vehicle that's connected to the internet. It could be, oh, there's this TSB for your engine controllers. It has a flaw where something goes bad. So in that case, we're going to plug in the dealer tool to do an update and update your controller. That communication that's just over the CANbus could be, in many cases, maybe has limited amounts of security and capability behind it.
Got it. Okay. And so now you run the risk of not. So we've already talked about being able to sniff the wire and see things. Yep. Okay, fine. Maybe inject certain traffic pieces or replay or what have you. And now you're talking about the actual the legitimate components themselves being updated to an attacker's preference.
Right. So you have this embedded system, and you can put some code in RAM and run it, which means then usually these systems are bare metal. There's no OS. Often there's very little in the way of like secure boot capabilities. That is changing,
Okay.
but often there's very little in the way of secure boot facilities or security facilities. So you could potentially just erase the entire thing and brick your car. I would not advise doing that unless you really want to brick your car. Um, but it's you could basically do anything you can do if you have the ability to run code on a system.
Yeah.
And then,
And
yeah.
and these packages, as we're downloading them, there's no digital signing on them, or is
These things are often designed and deployed very much like in the way that like kind of embedded engineers think about things. So this is changing in more recent years, but if somebody, most embedded engineers, they're not concerned with security, they just want something to work. So it has some simple validation to make sure that like, okay, well, from this range to this range, run a simple CRC32. And does it work? Does it match? If it matches, like, great, we downloaded the information correctly. Because they're concerned about like like accidental bit flips due to hardware issues, or they're concerned about bit flips or mangled data in transmission. So that's what most of these systems are designed to deal with.
God? Okay, so there's just no overhead to make sure, other than like parity bits,
Well,
right?
there hasn't been. Parity bits, CRC32, checksums, like the standard classic stuff, like the back in the 90s type things. And that's changing for some systems. Newer designs are starting to use proper signatures, proper asymmetric encryption and signatures and secure elements. The engine controllers are typically the ones that are secured first because those are the ones that are the most concerned to the automakers. Like competitors coming in and stealing their engine control information, or people who modify vehicles going in and modifying things without them to be able to detect it, because that can lead to warranty claims, which is a cost. It's a direct cost. If somebody modifies their engine and gets and breaks it, and then the automaker goes to the OEM and says, my engine broke, and they don't see why it happened, so they fix it.
This is like the digital version of rolling back the odometer, right?
Yeah.
Oh, it's interesting. Okay, so it's. I mean, as you're speaking, what's coming to my mind is like, classically, like servers were attacked, and then server developers got smart. So the hackers, the attackers went to the clients, and then the client authors got smart, and like it just seems like we're just shifting, and it seems like the next low hanging fruit is these automotive systems, because the development processes. I mean, we're learning the same things over and over again. What you're saying to me isn't anything groundbreaking. That to me is fascinating. Like,
yeah. I've worked in a few different industries over my career, and I would say that like there's just this progression where like each industry is inside its own little bubble, and they tend to be isolated in that bubble and think that the way they're doing it is perfect for their industry and their devices and their environment, and their shit doesn't stink. And they tend to lag another industry by like 5 to 10-ish years in terms of both the technology used for development and also the security issues in the system, right? So you have like regular old servers, mainframes, IT systems and such back in the 90s. Next, then the lagging system, the lagging industry there is probably medical. I mean, you could quibble about a lot of these things, but there's medical, there's industrial, and then you get like there's automotive, there's aerospace, there's telecom. I'm not saying they're in that order. It's probably more telecom. Actually, telecom is probably the first one. Now, if I'm thinking about this clearly. But then, just like each industry kind of lags a little bit of whoever came before it. And the thing is, they're all approaching things from a similar point of view, and they're making the same mistakes, and nobody's really learning from other people's mistakes.
Yeah, that to me is the big takeaway. Yeah.
And I mean, to some degree, it makes sense because they don't have people who are experts in cybersecurity, right? They don't have people who have this particular big picture view in the industry when they start making the decisions of like, let's connect this to the internet. What are the downsides? So they don't have the people there. They're just trying to solve a functional problem.
Yeah.
And
Well,
it just
I'm glad you're doing what you're doing.
Thanks.
Aaron, last call. Where can people go to find out more about you, your work, or anything you mentioned today?
Oh God. I don't know if I've got a great place for people. I don't really put much information out there. Well, easy place you can, if you're on Mastodon, you can find me at Acorn at masto.hackers.town.
Rock on. Aaron, thank you so much.
Yeah.
I really appreciate this.
Cheers.
I hope everyone has learned as much as I have. And yeah, thank you for sharing. And yeah, cheers for sure.
Mm-hmm.